Do you want to come this time since it's not cold?
What's that? What time are we meeting?
4:45 is when it starts, so we probably want to start walking at 4:30.
I got tired of that line.
Okay.
Today.
All right, no problem.
I was just trying to work out this week too. It's very cold.
You can still do the bike. You just said the side. Tell me what time you're gonna do it, and I'll make sure I take her down here so you can focus and just.
Yeah, I mean for the bike, I feel like that's not too necessary for the bike because I can always just put her in the room and.
I mean, logistically it's not, but I think that you have to force yourself to do a specific time. Otherwise, you will just be like, oh, I can always do it.
Yeah. Okay.
That's literally why I started this freaking walking group, because I was like, I'm just gonna not exercise if I don't have like a time that I have to show up at.
Yeah, it kind of holds you accountable.
Especially because I'm the one in charge. I had to put a lot of thought into whether or not I was gonna cancel it on Tuesday, but I was like, I literally can't afford to not get this work done, so I had to.
Yeah.
And even though I got stuff to do today, it's like I still made it a point to.
I'll just put I think most of the Christmas stuff is here. I think those are my bows.
It's still moving. So there's an article that basically says Cardona says standardized tests haven't always met the mark, offers new flexibility, Helen. And it sounds like from the reading of this, I'm going to forward it to you, you can drive a truck through it. So here we go.
So while y'all are busy.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
There's Lydia. Hey, Lydia.
Hi.
I'm excited for you to meet this team.
I'm excited to meet you all too.
Likewise. Well, maybe since we don't all know each other, should we just start with a round of introductions? Sound good?
That sounds great.
Well, since I'm Yammering, I'll start. So, Lydia and Cindy, I feel like we've had to work together, but not as directly.
Not as directly. I use your stuff all the time, but no, it's mostly been Heidi and Beth and Kate.
Yeah. Well, you all come highly recommended, obviously, for this team. So I'm Helen Westmoreland. I'm the director of our Center for Family Engagement here at PTA, and I am the lead on a project we are working on, which we'll talk about today, to really build school district leaders' demand for more evidence-based family engagement programming. I'm the mom of a 5-year-old, and my background is in family and community engagement. So I've worked on the sort of think tank side and the philanthropy side. And I always say my favorite side is the parent voice side here at PTA. And I will pitch it to Keisha, since you're off mute.
I am. I guess I was living off mute. I'm Keisha DeSantis-Lester. I am the Director of Strategic Communications at National PTA. I've been here for almost 12 years, come May. And I have 2 kiddos. I have an almost 3-year-old. She'll be 3 on December 21st. And I have an almost 8-year-old who will be 8 in March. So I am early in my parenting walk, but enjoying every step of it. I have been the editor of Our Children magazine. I'm a co-host with Helen for our podcast. So definitely that voice of parent is really important to us. We've worked closely with, Heidi and I work closely with so many people on our team and in our association just to elevate that and to connect with the parent voice. So it's super important to us. And I will pass it to Heidi.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Heidi Mae Wilson. I'm on the communications team at National PTA and have been with PTA for 10 years now. And I've had the good fortune to work with Cindy a number of times and really excited to get to see and connect with you again. Lydia, it's really nice to meet you, and I look forward to connecting and working with you too. When the pandemic started was when we started doing even more together in terms of parent mindset research and pushing that out, and then doing some higher profile virtual events and symposiums at our convention and that sort of thing, thanks to the great support from HCM. And so I got to be involved in those events kind of on the back end of the virtual ones when we had a production company that helped us and made everything go live and look great. And then also pushing out our press releases and such, announcing our research findings and that sort of thing. I am a mom of 3 kiddos. We just had birthday season in my house, so everybody just changed to a new age. But I have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old. But again, glad to be with you this afternoon, and great to see you again, Cindy.
I think I was with you when you were working up until the minute the 2-year-old was born. Like, literally, I think you were talking to us on your way to the freaking hospital.
Oh, that's right, because that was right in the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
We had like 500,000 people coming to a podcast, and we had a webinar.
Exciting.
Going on. I'm like, is she still working? I'm like,
She's still working.
That when I was having my water broke that morning, I remember I sent talking points to Nathan, some update, because he was doing some event. And then I also had a conversation with Anna. She called me and I was like, and I just have to tell you that I'm going to the hospital soon. My water broke.
That's what baby number 3 looks like, but it was a little ridiculous. I just have to say.
Well, Heidi, don't tell Wyatt. I hope he doesn't hear you that Auntie Keisha said he was 1 yesterday.
Oh, that's okay. I wish he was still 1. I'm trying to hang on to every minute.
I'm still in denial that he's 2, apparently.
I know. Cindy, Lydia, do you guys want to give a just brief introduction of yourselves as well?
Because they know me a little bit.
Sure. So my name is Lydia. It's nice to meet all of you. This work is definitely very important to me as a former teacher and a very new parent. My daughter is 2 months. She turns 3 months in a couple days. So
Congratulations.
yeah, just made it back from maternity leave. So I'm excited to be on this. And yeah, I've been working with HCM for a little over a year now. I started in May of 2022. So like you said, Helen, I've done some work with the PTA already, helping with the listening sessions that we did at the end of last year. So I'm excited to learn more about the project that we're going to be working on now.
She's amazing, and she's a beautiful writer, and she has about 1 million different skills, and we had so much guilt bringing her out of the master teacher program that she was leading. You hate to take people out of the classroom that you know are beloved by their students, so it was kind of a tough thing, but we did it.
So we are glad to have your gift.
I know. We did it anyway. I still feel guilty even talking about it. Cindy Williams. I am in a totally different stage. You do not want to be where I am. I just sent my youngest to college.
Oh, congratulations. Launched.
I cry a lot. I have a son with special needs who's my forever kid. So I am not actually an empty nester because he's going to be here with me for forever. But having my youngest out of school and having my kids were 7 years apart, so I was in the PTA as a member and a part of my school public system for a really long time, having that gap in the middle. So it's been super weird not to drive up to a school every day, like it's just, or be super involved or not sharing something or not doing something. And it's a strange time. And I don't like it. I have to say, I just told my husband immediately I wanted to go adopt a few kids. And he's like,
oh,
I would much rather have kids in the house. I don't love this dynamic at all. My oldest is 25 and doesn't want to be treated like a kid, even though he's, got so many challenges. But so I don't have anybody right now. So I'm on a couple of boards where I'm trying to adopt them, even if I can't officially adopt them, just hang on to them because I miss it. And, we have had the privilege of working with you guys on all kinds of cool stuff. And just as an aside, Heidi, I'm going to work with Kate Snow in 3 weeks to do a parent.
Wow.
With Tracy Potts, by the way.
Good.
Tracy and I
Tracy was one of our first fellows with the center.
So
Did you know that?
Tell you guys how brilliant she is. If you want me to send you some rock star clips from Tracy. So Tracy was the spokesperson for the Gallup release. And so we put her on a satellite radio media tour. We put her in all kinds of cool Christian publications. We had a Christian media strategy. And she just rocked it with Christianity Today and Christian Post, and like reached millions of moms. And then we've got her doing NBC News Now with Kate in studio, which is going to be great.
Congratulations. That's wonderful.
But the Scout stuff is big, right? When parents know they do stuff. And I don't know if y'all have had a chance to read the report, but we had 800 people show up for the webinar on Monday. So, or register. I don't know how many actually showed up, but all that to say, so much of the cool stuff that we're even doing right now is got pieces and parts from the stuff that we've been doing with you guys. And the fact that I get to hang out with Tracy all the time, like I owe you guys a huge debt of gratitude. She's
awesome.
She's incredible.
I can't have words. Like, she's just that good. And
yes, she is.
She talks about you guys on every single thing we do. Like, everything we do, she talks about everything she knows she learned from the PTA. So it's a twofer when she talks about this stuff. So we have done a lot of press this year. We've been doing the learning loss work with Tom Kane, and then the Gallup stuff and the Gray will be on Gray stuff. And I say that only to say I feel like our communications, relationships, and knowledge has grown so much in the last year. I feel like I know a lot more about the stuff that works and the stuff that doesn't, and the stuff you pay for and the stuff you don't, and the reporters who really care and what is it they care about. So I actually feel better right now about my communications ability to help than I have probably since I was running it at the Department of Ed.
Well, I'm so glad we reached out to you, Dad.
But it's just because, you only get to like run that playbook if you have something that you're pushing out that has that kind of salience to it. And so, it's you're only as good as the thing you're selling, and we've been selling some really interesting stuff. And so it's exciting to think about how would you use the stuff that Lydia and I have learned over the course of the last year. And the last thing I'll say is I've had the joy and privilege of being at HCM now for almost a decade since I left the Gates Foundation, and we are actually splitting up.
I know, I saw. So what is the timeline on that?
So the timeline on that, so what happened is there's no backstory. There's just a front story. Terrell Halaska is tired. She has had an amazing career, and she started as like the deputy at HHS and went to Domestic Policy Council at the White House, and then went to the Department of Ed, has head of Congressional Affairs, and like she's just had this ridiculous career, and she just wants to like run a coffee shop with a jazz guy, and she just wants to be done. And so we're having to respect that as much as we don't want to. So what this means is when she decided to leave, Kristen Conklin, who runs POSAC, and myself, who runs K-12 with Lydia, we just decided it's a little bit easier right now to have two small things than one big thing. And we sort of have different business models and different things that we do. So our full team at HCM that does K-12, which, is me and Lydia and Duncan and Jocelyn and Chris and Jonathan and like our whole group.
Erica's still with you?
Who?
Is Erica great? No, it's been a while since
she's where'd she go? But
we miss her so much. We're going to see her next week, actually. She went to Cambium. And she has lots of states now. And so every time one of her states pushes out a piece of crap, I call her. I'm like, how did you let this happen?
Oh, that's so funny. Always the communicator.
She's got Texas. She's got a lot. She's like going gangbusters, and she's in charge of the actual reporting. So really and truly, we're following some of the reporting stuff together because she learned so much as a part of all this work that she's trying to implement. But so our full team will go to a place called Waypoint Education Partners, which is just a new company. It should look and feel and be almost identical. It will be the doors close for us at HCM on December 31st and reopen on January 1st at Waypoint. And
and is that where your K-12 practice will be, Cindy?
It is. So we're going to be Waypoint Education Partners. So if this contract could be with Waypoint, we would and start on January 1st. That probably would be the cleanest thing. We could start work for you guys tomorrow, and if it can't, then
we also have some contractual wiggles we'd like to talk about.
Yeah,
so like, they're open to all of them.
And then if you're not, like, the situation at HCM is beautiful, and they would say, great, do it with us, and we'll figure it out. So we can pretty much do anything, but there is a transition up front, and it is. It's a little bittersweet, but it's going to be great because I have this amazing group of humans that are coming, and we're all going to just sort of stay together. Lydia, do you have anything you'd add to that?
No, I think you captured all of it.
Okay. We're all in
It
together.
sounds like an exciting time. And so I thought, Cindy and Lydia, if it works for you, what maybe we could do is I could give you I always find a little bit of a deep backstory helpful of how you got into something, give you a little bit of deep backstory and how this project is a little different for PTA, partially why we are reaching out to you. Cindy, I sent you some back slides. I don't think we need to go through those one by one.
No, I've been through them, and I've Googled a bunch of stuff, and I sent them to Lydia, so I feel like we're good on that. And I mean, I didn't know that any of this was, I didn't even know that organization existed. And we do so much work with Tom Kane around all this best practice stuff. And
I know.
Oh my God, how did we not know?
I know. And they've got a pretty good audience already built in too.
That's awesome. So, it just shows you how these verticals don't talk to each other.
None of them talk to each other.
We're doing all this work around best practice, and I was like, oh my God, how did we not know this was here?
None of them talk to each other.
Talk to each other.
So, and then we could, not particularly gracefully or diplomatically, but do like to just start a little bit with the business so we all kind of can temper and scope our conversation. So what we are looking at right now is I need to double check. Our finances are always a little delayed, but about up to $100,000 contract. Ideally spent by the end of March. And then we've got a little bit in a year 2 and 3 proposal going forward. So just to sort of put that out there on the table for everyone as we go in. So there's a little bit of the how did this all happen and come to be? When we started the Center for Family Engagement over 6 years ago, I think it was. I'm looking at Keisha and Heidi because it's not all the time that actually there's 3 people from PTA who've been around since that time. We did a lot of listening sessions and asking the field sort of how can we help? What is the role? One of the things we heard and is sort of key in our strategic plan but has been on hold because it's a higher price ticket item to implement is building an internal clearinghouse for PTA leaders, right? So that our PTA audience has a better understanding of what research-based practice looks like, right? Sort of moving like everyone else in the family engagement field beyond the bake sale, quote unquote, right? Mm-hmm. As I mentioned, we've sort of been working around that as much as possible with some other publications, training, resources. But we did a couple of years ago a project for the Carnegie Corporation of New York from Vika that was a landscape assessment of all the different tech platforms that are facilitating family school communication. And we did it for such a bargain price. And it didn't go a whole lot of places, but it was a pretty thorough assessment of the field, and we did listening sessions with parents. We had COSIN and ASA.
Helpful to the field. Learning Heroes would have loved to have read that.
I will send it to you. We sent it out, but it's what Keisha knows because she had to edit this damn thing. It's 60 page. It is not as user friendly as one would like, but the information is all there. Yeah. Everything from which platform does what, which does translation.
Power School and
Yeah, I looked at Power School. I think we looked at about 24 different vendors. We did interviews with them and surveys with them.
I know so many people who would kill to see this thing.
We will send you the links. I'll find
I love it.
Or even Heidi or Keisha, if you can Google and find it on the website, that would be amazing.
I'm working to pull it up.
It's hard to find. Vika got talking with Stephanie Sharp over at Overdeck Family Foundation. And
we love
Overdeck
Ambika, by the way. I'm an Ambika super fan.
Yeah, I love all of them are great. And Ambika is really just has a lot of trust and support in us as an organization and the center's work. So we're very grateful to her for that and bringing Overdeck to us as well. So Overdeck is their early impact portfolio is particularly focused on scaling evidence-based programs. So they're funding Talking Points and Springboard Collaborative and parent-teacher home visits. It's not a huge portfolio, and they're still, I think, a little new to kind of quote-unquote ecosystem work, but they were looking for an ecosystem grantee, and Ambika was like, oh, you know who did this great thing a couple of years ago and could do this is National PTA. Mm-hmm. So really they came to us and were like, hey, what do you think about building an online clearinghouse, right? Like that sort of maps essentially a vendor guide of what evidence-based family engagement programs look like for a district leader audience. And so we had been at that point working through the updated national standards for family school partnership and some other things increasingly with this audience, even though they're not really our core audience, as you know. But we thought, well, this is in our strategic plan. This serves a lot of purposes, right? Like this would be some exciting work to do. So we decided to go forward with it. So that's how sort of this thing kind of came to be. So we started just last year with them on this, and the scope of this past year's work has really focused on kind of understanding from district leaders kind of what their hang-ups are, where the opportunities are when it comes to some of their family engagement strategy. So we did key informant interviews with a number of district leaders. We have a cohort that is ready and sitting there and already constructed to advise on the project, provide feedback, et cetera, that's representative of some districts across the country. And we've been partnering pretty closely with the School Superintendents Association around that. We, as we're sort of getting into it, my team will tell me, like, I was having, honestly, some just, like, real moral dilemmas about spending a whole bunch of money on like such a niche online website. Like, I'm like, how many district leaders are looking for family engagement stuff, period? Like, it's not that many, right? Like, and how many are looking for like evidence-based ones specifically, like an even smaller slice? So we really started to explore, was there a way we could sort of integrate this work into something that already had a built-in audience, right? Where we could kind of maximize that. And that is how we were able to reallocate sort of web development resources to some marketing and messaging work in this year's contract, because we were able to sort of make some of those agreements. So we're in the process now, just to sort of bring us to present day, of working with CRRE at Johns Hopkins on a contract to really build out the family engagement section of evidenceforessa.org. PTA and a lot of the ed associations were one of the initial partners in that. They've done some great, there are apparently 24 different online clearinghouses that do evidence-based work. So if Tom Kane hadn't heard of this one, maybe he's heard of the other 23. There's a lot of them out there.
We've heard of 3 or 4 of those. Like, I had no idea there were that many. We've done a lot of work with the Center for Reimagining Public Education. They've got a pretty good one. The Collaboratives put one together. Yeah, I mean,
there's a good curriculum. So both Overdeck and Carnegie have funded ed reports.
Yeah, the ed reports we've seen, which is great. We should, for another day, I just heard Gates is going to do another one. Like,
I mean, it's funders. So honestly, we felt pretty good that we didn't have to just put a lot of money into building a new shiny thing. We could really sort of have a little bit of space to think strategically with this. So we have just hired a contractor that will build sort of a landing page for us for the project.
Yeah.
And we have
its own URL.
Yes, it will have its own URL.
Yay.
But then we will link from that to Evidence for ESSA.
But you don't have to call your URL Evidence for ESSA, right?
No.
Yay. Look at Heidi. Like, there she goes again. But I'm like, can we call it something better?
So that's one of our questions. So when we had an in-person convening with these five school districts and their superintendents that, we're providing some problem practice coaching and support, but really they're kind of that, like I said, body to help advise us. And so we had an in-person convening in July with them, and they were like, the Family Engagement Program Clearinghouse, like what, like, is it a hub? Is it so already the title we know, like, needs work. We are soft launching, and I put that in quotes because we can define what a soft launch looks like very much, at AESA's annual conference in San Diego in mid-February. So we've got a workshop slot there, so we can use that workshop to share, to get more input, however it is. So I've talked a lot. Let me pause and just give Lydia, Cindy, you guys a chance to ask some questions of us or thoughts.
What is the definition of success from a communications standpoint, both from a contractual agreement, like working with Overdeck, because you always have to check that box as a baseline, but from you guys' perspective, like if all of this were to go off beautifully,
smashingly,
what would that mean?
So putting the timeline sort of aside, right, but like a longer term sort of scope, one like sort of leading indicator we would be looking at is, are we increasing traffic to evidence for ESSA? So we have a baseline already in place there. We have in our proposal for the next couple of years a pretty big emphasis, and I should mention the other reason that, not that there weren't already enough, I reached out to you, Cindy, is because I spoke at Overdeck's convening of their grantees in New York last month and had the pleasure of getting to meet with their comms team. And I was like,
were you with Lena?
Yes, Lena and Brittany. Yeah. And they were like, we've been working with Learning Groups and doing some great stuff. And I was like, okay, so I think all the
That's really sweet. No, I've worked really closely with Lena and Chapin are two of my people, right? So Chapin runs comms at Gates and Lena runs it over at Overdeck. And nobody really runs it at Carnegie. They don't really do comms. It's just Ambika.
They have a comms person, Celeste, but I don't know if they're as actively involved.
Yeah, and I've met her, but Ambika never says, like, you have to talk to Celeste. Like, it feels very internal facing as opposed to external, like, strategy.
Yeah.
And
agreed.
But Lena's very hands-on in a good way. Like, she's
very hands-on in a good way. I have gotten that same impression. And so, as you're probably alluding to, clicks are not going to be a sufficient, right? Like,
not for them. They're pretty intense on the, sometimes their outcomes are completely unreasonable. And I would say that if she was on the phone, like, she wanted us to go get Soups to give us information and go beyond grades that Soups just aren't going to give us. They don't have to give it to the federal government. They're sure not giving it to us, right? It's like, I wish we were that important, but we're so not. So we had to really negotiate the success stuff with her.
And I am envisioning we will also be doing some of that negotiation. Yeah. What we proposed is some increase of traffic to that site. We also proposed that in the next couple of years we'll actually bring an evaluator on to like build a little bit more of a plan. And the more meaningful metric, which we will be collecting because a good bulk of our strategy is the road show, going to do conferences and workshops and all of that, is a pre-post, both sort of a net promoter of the site itself, as well as how likely would you be to shift your budget from what you're doing now to something different. So that we are hoping will satisfy.
And are the evidence-based practices done like case studies in a way that they're compelling? Like, are they selling the
So it's a mix, and I would say the field is, as you probably even gathered from your work with Learning here, is a little bit fragmented. So both in terms of programs focus on K-12 and early childhood, so that is like a little bit of a funky thing within this group. But also just internal capacity. Like, I talked to Alejandra. I don't know if you know Springboard Collaborative. They are amazing.
They are, and I know that they're just getting rave reviews from folks. Viv knows Alejandro well, and I don't. But I also know I heard from Citadel the other day that Citadel has invested in them as well. I don't know if you.
And they got that McKinsey Scout money, like they're rolling in it. And
they're kind of rolling in it.
And I was like, Alejandro, do you have any examples of collateral you've used, any stories, anything that you have found is particularly good at hooking this audience? And he was like, we kind of have an underdeveloped marketing function. And that is a little bit the story of a lot of these programs. So we as PTA, and this was the question Lena asked like pretty pointedly, are you going to be that intermediary, sort of like an after school alliance, right? Like kind of weighing in and supporting the growth of this field. And right now that answer is yes. That is sort of how we are thinking about the next few years.
It's a great role for you guys. And Ken Griffin, just launched Griffin Catalyst, and they were 100% the funder of the Gallup poll. So just so you know, Lena didn't put a dime in the Gallup poll. It's really
She said that. She was like, we didn't technically fund them, but she knows all about it, so you did a good job with that.
Well, we gave her the opportunity, and she was skeptical that you could get that kind of press with Gallup, and I was like, with an AP exclusive attached to it, or an AP piece to it, you actually can. And
so one of Overdeck's other things they are thinking about is moving thought leader mindset around this sort of field. So I would say we're looking at clicks to website, like our target audience, district leaders, increasing and shifting their budgets, and some indicator of them shifting their budgets to be around building more evidence-based programming. And then there is some national fabric, right, of like thought leaders, media, et cetera, that's also giving coverage to this in a way that hasn't been done before. And our trick with this, which you probably gathered, is like, this is a pretty heady, jargony, niche set of work, like piece of work. And so figuring out what the hook is to make people care about it without undermining any of our other work, I think will be challenging.
Well, and the reason I mentioned Citadel is they just made a giant investment in Springboard with Alejandro too. So that's why I was mentioning, and I think it's really significant. They're new entrants in the education space as funders, and Lord knows we need new entrants. But somebody's going to have to do some storytelling. So when you think about Lakeisha and what she's accomplished at Open Reach, that started, Heidi, with us doing the NBC piece on Lakeisha and having us go tell her story with a bunch of cameras and then putting that out there far and wide. And Lakeisha would say, and then we put her on our webinar, and we started to say to everybody, sort of, this is what good looks like.
Exactly.
Lakeisha locked and loaded this, and she was both just a beautiful spokesperson for the work.
She's from Oakland Reach, right?
Yeah. But they had the data, right? She's like, my program's outperforming every single program in the district, and it's all parent engagement. That's what we are. We are parent engagement. We are like a moral contract between these two things. And she was so compelling. And so I don't know if anywhere in this budget there is a content creation budget.
There is. So let me tell you a little bit about some of the sort of
not to jump super far ahead, but I just am curious.
No, it's good.
What are the tools in your toolkit that you get to
the menu of things that are on either this year's scope of work or we're proposing for the next 2 years. Mm-hmm. So one of them is a video that. One of the things we heard in these key informant interviews that Evidence for ESSA and many others do not do is the thing that matters most to SUPES and district leaders when they're deciding what to do is what their peers are doing, right? So we do have a video that is capturing both some of these programmatic pieces, but also the stories of the end users and the impact it's making in their district or what it took to shift.
Has that already been done?
No.
Great.
None of anything I'm saying has been done yet.
I'm so glad. That means it can be multi-purpose. It can be B-roll. You can do it in a way that you can use it in lots of different ways.
Yeah. And right now, Keisha and I talked, our plan was to try to do that in-house, but again, we are sort of open given the scope of things. The other thing that's on our wish list, right, is obviously messaging and framing.
Yeah.
Thought partnering and help. You probably gathered from that slide deck that we in-house have done a decent amount of that.
You're good at it by virtue of just you're good at it. Like,
well, we've done like a good bit of it, but there are some of these things that's like, what messaging would resonate to get people to shift from thinking of family engagement as a standard comms strategy to an instructional strategy? Like, that's going to be sort of a key underpinning, right, of the argument we're making here. So we're looking for some messaging.
I've spent a lot of time thinking about that.
I imagine
the ballot poll was part of it, which is, you couldn't get Tom Kane or Dan Goldhaber or Sean Reardon or any of those guys who, like, are the, quote, evidence people to ever say that parents knowing if their kids were doing okay would matter, right? So, we've spent a lot of time thinking about that because everything we say they think is soft and everything they say they think is hard.
Exactly.
And we've got to shift that thinking. That they're just full of shit. Sorry, but like, it's ridiculous to think that their research is precious and our research is not worthy of like mention. And we've been going toe to toe with these guys on this as recently as the New York Times piece that ran a week ago.
Mm-hmm. Which was great.
It was great. It could have been better. But it was great. But they just are unwilling to talk about parents as a part of the solution. And that's the piece that I find so annoying.
And for school districts, a lot of them think of their family and community engagement offices, charges. It is around, keeping folks quelled, but it's more public relations, right?
I thought parent management.
So it's not surprising that the Tom Kanes think that, because in the world of implementation, that's often how it's playing out in districts, right? So that's what we're most targeting and hoping to change. So in addition to some of that messaging work, we'd be looking for some support on at least sort of one high visibility event. I think in my mind, and I'm open to being pushed on this, it's actually probably us pushing into something that exists instead of us creating a standalone. Like, it could be a South by Southwest, it could be getting in time in front of Broad, right, fellows, but like, we've got pretty good relationships and can get into some of these ed associations, right? But some of these more, there are slightly more gatekeepers, put it that way, with some of these others. So we're not looking to do a webinar.
Play, as you know, like some of it's pay to play.
Yes.
But the pay to play is usually de minimis. Like, it's sometimes like a sort of token. The most important audience, like when you do your audience segmentation or a hierarchy, who is your most important audience? Is it principals? Is it SUPs?
It is superintendents and question mark, and because this is one of the things we don't fully know with our research, who has budgetary authority in school districts. So sometimes that's Title I coordinators and offices. Sometimes some of that responsibility is shared with school boards. Sometimes it's the family and community engagement office in a district. And again, we have really great relationships for that audience.
For all of those, yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely inside district folks that are setting budgets.
And maybe even face coordinators inside.
Yes. Absolutely.
You probably have done this, but you can go talk to all of the Title I directors. They have a meeting.
They have a conference.
And you can literally go grab, I only know that from my time at the U.S. Department of Ed. I used to be like, wow, if people knew you could go get every one of these people at one conference.
I know.
So that may be an opportunity.
And that would be one more thing. So we have, I want to say, marketing plan. When I talked to Lena and Brittany, they were like, don't spend a lot of money on a marketing plan. Like, it's less all about the marketing plan. It's going to be about talking to people. But we do have a list of sort of conferences, networks, outlets that we would like sort of feedback on. And right, like, I would maybe go to this group instead of this group, or have you thought about this group? In the scheme of things.
Film it so that you've got it streamable and all the stuff.
Yeah.
This is exciting. I mean,
so we want more press attention to it, we need to figure out how to talk about it in a way people can, like, identify with it.
You just need some rock stars. Like, who are your Lakeishas? Like, we'll have to go dig for what you've got. Like,
we've got some rock stars. We've been on the for the rock stars. So I think we've got some good ideas of folks inside school districts, and they're not going to be a lot different than the Learning Heroes. Folks Learning Heroes have identified.
That's okay, but like Maya's amazing. You know, we used to use Maya for Gallup. Trinace, have y'all met Trinace in Fort Worth? Man, she's so good. We just stuck her in the AP story. So yeah, no, I mean, knowing, like, when you have characters, it gets a lot easier to tell the press that they're going to have a good story. So the fact that you've already started digging around for some of those, and then obviously they need digital now. Like, we're just in a different world where even if they're writing it in print, they still need it for their social. So
exactly, yeah. And then,
I'll be excited to see who your characters are.
Well, we have some of them, but we want to like better understand like who the profile of those and right, like what should they be able to speak to. And the other thing that's going to be happening in tandem that you may or may not want to have a role in. If you did, it would probably be a more limited like opening doors role, but nevertheless, its capacity you would contribute. So just to call it out, we are looking to bring a third funder into the project. So seeing if there's someone that might be a good fit. Ideally, we want to cover the full scope of what we've scoped out now. We've got about $100K that we want to get covered by someone else, but we'd be willing to expand it. For example, if Ed Week's Research Center wanted to do a survey of how districts are spending their Title I funding or what they know about it, or right, that something like that could be like an add-on to what we're doing.
Which would be news cycle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly. So a little bit of thought partnering about that.
I'm happy to. I've worked with a bunch of these guys, as you know.
They all have their specific areas. So I'm like, maybe Gates wants us to put the math ones in the database,
Right. And Keisha, you may not know, I used to run communications for the Gates Foundation. So did you
and Viv work together while you were there?
I recruited Viv.
Yeah,
Viv was my deputy at Gates, and
that makes sense.
And we just became like sisters in the sense of like the whole work thing. So when she left, we left around the same time that we decided to do the Learning Heroes thing, but only one of us needed to do that full time, and one of us needed to go make a living. You can't have that organization pay for two people, right? The organization could barely pay for one.
She's done great work.
Oh my gosh, it's been so fun. We've had the best time. And so we spend about half of our time on Learning Heroes and then half of our time on everything else. But the reason I say that, Keisha, just as full disclosure, is I used to live in the funder world for about 7 years. And so I am so happy to help you think about those guys and that's why I was mentioning Catalyst. Like, they're new and they're looking for new things and they're trying to figure out.
I know that could be good. I know Balmer's also been looking for new things. And
so Balmer's great. I know. Yeah. Like, so I know a lot of these guys. Steve Balmer came to my son's birthday party. It was a bowling party. He wore his Duck jersey because my son hates the Ducks. He's adorable and their family's awesome. I don't know the team as well though. Like, and they're the only famous people I know. They live in my neighborhood and they went to our public school. And I mean, I was in Pill, but we're not friends. But the Balmers sent their kids to the public school, which tells you a lot about them.
That does, actually.
The public school. It was pretty cool, actually. They're huge. They're just normal. But yeah, so like any of those folks that I can be helpful with personal. And we've got John Daisy who just took over Bezos. John's the bomb.
Oh, that's interesting.
And they're still early learning, as you know. So they're focused.
But Overdeck is early learning too. Like,
I know, and they're reaching into early learning. And so if there's a way to segment the early learning piece, John is as brilliant as anybody I know. He's amazing. So like I'm happy to help you think about where you go get whatever it is you still want. I mean, Bib would tell you my superpower is actually not comms, but spending money. I love to spend money. So
that is a great superpower.
I love to spend money on comms stuff, and I will tell you, like one of the best investments we made in Go Beyond Grades was $30,000 on B-roll of Sharita, who was our story for that campaign, because Sharita was amazing. I don't know if y'all have seen the video.
Yes.
But it was not inexpensive, but we did it with TV quality so that you could just pick it up and put it on TV. So we used an NBC producer to do it, but it's now gone around the world and back. It's about to go on Citadel's website. But I mean, it's how you do the content to multi-purpose it across platforms. It's expensive, but when you can do it right, it opens up a whole world of places you can put it. And so Marissa Buchanan, who's the former executive producer of Nightly, produced this for us. So she not only put it on the places where her friends who are executive producers still work, but she was, if you said Marissa did it, everybody's like, oh, good, you're good, right? So, So if you can go round up a little more money, like there are some things I'd love to add to your list of your wish list, right? Like if we could collaborate on the fundraising, it'd be fun to sort of say, as long as we're doing this, let's go create some stuff that gives you more opportunity about where you land.
Yeah, agreed. And this is going to be...
Everybody's looking for good news, and you've got good news. You're literally out there looking for good news.
Good news. I'm like, hey, there are all these great programs doing amazing things for our kids.
And nobody
knows
about
it shouldn't take pulling teeth for districts to invest in them, you know. Mm-hmm. And some of them are quite the bargain.
Well, so and that feels like a story that you need to write sooner than later before the deadline lifts, that we need to push around, is like, you know, that there are a handful of things that are a bargain that you've got. And we know about some of those too, just from the work with Tom.
Yeah.
And the Zern research will come out end of year, and that's going to be super impressive. And some of that has a family engagement component to it, but you can tell, like, we're already in. Like, we think this is fun. And selfishly, we get to learn something new. So there's a big new part of this for us, which I really appreciate.
Well, let's then talk a little next up. I don't know if I told you, in the world of like all our mixed connections, Tom Kane was one of my professors when I was in grad school.
No way.
So I have very fond memories. It was my favorite
He's my work husband right now.
It was my favorite class, like hands down.
I can't tell him that. That's too good for his ego. But I will tell him. Have y'all talked about this work?
I saw him on one of the Learning Heroes. They did like a partner convening or something, and I saw him, and I was like, oh my God. You remember me, but I remember you.
Well, but as we are surfacing these best practices, we should hop on the phone with him, because he can sprinkle holy water on some of them and sort of say, yeah, I agree. And we had really somebody's delivering a package, and it sounds like it's into the world, doesn't it? Anyway, for later conversation, he talks to reporters all the time about what is and isn't working associated with his data release, which is going to happen in December. So we can also put some of your things in his talking.
Totally. And that's part of our year 2 and 3 proposal as well, that we don't just populate evidence for ESSA, but that we get these profiles in at least 5 other sort of significant clearinghouses.
Yeah.
So next up, as I mentioned, we have a pile of money for a short period of time. I'm sure it's not a whole pile, but
we can do it for a long period of time and pay for it in a short period of time. So we are as flexible as they come, right, Heidi? We worked all summer for free.
I know. Well, and
actually, we're still working for free on the gun stuff. We've been working for Kate now.
So we can do like no cost extension type contracts or whatever. So I know, as I said, we've got about 100 through the end of March, and then at least 25, and it sort of depends where things shake out with Carnegie and Overduck. We might have a little more, but it definitely won't be more than 50, at least in the current proposal, for years 2 and 3. So what would make the most sense for you? Do you feel like you've got enough of a sense of our kind of wish list of all the things? How would you sort of like to move forward to get us to doing stuff?
Well, so there's 2 pieces, and I realize we just have 10 minutes, but this has been so fun. So I appreciate it, and we'll do the rest over email. So we, and Heidi knows some of this, we tend at ACM Now Waypoint to work on retainer philosophically, in the sense that scopes are great, but if you do comms and strategy, it's you do one thing and it says these next 3 things are more strategic than the thing you thought about before. So we really call a scope a get in the boat and row. It's like we're going to get in the boat and row with you and get with you where it is we need to go to be successful. So we usually sort of say, given what it is, this is about how much time it's going to take. And so then we divide whatever the amount is that's available across those months. Does that make sense? And so, we only take a certain number of projects because there's only 6 or 7 of us, and on anything comms, I need to be involved. So we try to only have me doing 3 or 4 things at a time.
And are you on 3 or 4 already?
So, it's interesting. So I would have told you, I really do have the space for this because Gallup is over. Gallup, we're going to still do it, but Gallup has been a giant sucking sound for 6 months. And it's been worth every minute of it, but it is actually done. And I have not, Gallup was its own thing in addition to whatever stuff I do for Learning Heroes. And I'm kind of at an interesting point where I get to actually pick up something new. And so this is super exciting for me. And Lydia's game, because we already had a talk and she looked at the deck and said, will you join me in this? So we don't do we can't do anything given our business model for less than 10 a month. So we try to be somewhere between 10 and 20 on all of our projects as a run rate. So if you think about this as like a 15 for just the point of conversation today, then that would get us, 4 or 5 months of comms in here, at a pretty serious, or it can be low touch over a longer period. But that's sort of how we work because we want to just be available to you to do the stuff you need given what you've got going on that week. And so we can write a general scope that says you are coming alongside this project to do communication strategy and execution and content delivery and whatever the paperwork needs to look like. But we would prefer to have sort of a weekly meeting or where we say these are the 3 things we need and we need them by this day. I need you to join this meeting with Citadel. I need you to do this or that. And we just sort of calibrate as we go. And as long as we're on a rhetorical retainer, even though on paper it looks different, because it needs to look like whatever the grant is saying, we're good with that.
Okay.
Does that
and Heidi, you've gotten those contracts through PTA before? I'm assuming yes. Cindy, we've had those type of contracts with PTA before.
We have, but what we can do is write whatever contract you need, in the sense that, if what you need is, we're going to do this project, and we're going to do it January, February, March, and we're going to just pay it out a third, or half on the front end and a half on the back end, that's great. But then we can have a decision that for that amount of money over that,
This would be with it.
We are really going to be.
Is there anything we've talked about that would be out of bounds?
So basically, what we would say is, if we're going to get paid in 3 months, $33,000 a piece or whatever, or however you want to do that, but we start in December, and we know we're really going to be doing this through May. And so the paper looks one way, and we bill it according to whatever the paper needs to look like, and what we're doing is another way, because we don't need to do $100,000 of work in 3 months, right? You don't need to pay us $33,000 a month. That's hilarious. That's not us.
Wouldn't be nice, team? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's not how the world works, right? So all of, we sort of live in that between 10 and 20 range for this stuff that we do, whether you're Harvard or any of the other sort of things that we have worked on recently. Okay. And so this feels more than 10, but less than 20. And you can tell me sort of what that needs. We're all talking off the top of our head. We probably should give it a little more.
I can go back, look at our budget more closely, talk to some colleagues. I think what would be helpful from you guys is of the things we talked about, if you wouldn't mind just reflecting back in an email, and it could just be bullets. It does not have to be whatever. But, with the scope of roughly 100,000, right? We think we could take on this, something that might be a limiting factor, right?
I will really think about it.
It's just what depth and breadth.
Yeah.
So, if you wouldn't mind just doing that in an email, then I can sort of get moving here. Heidi or Keisha, I know more than anything, you guys want to just be abreast of what was going on. Are there any flags you have or things on your wish list that we haven't talked about, or ways you would like us to work together that we should just raise?
Now, from my perspective, this all sounds great to me.
Yes, I agree. And I think that the biggest thing is just when we start thinking about like strategy and things like that, we're happy to help provide some insight. It's a little bit of a different audience from our regular PTA
Group
audience, the group. But we still want to make sure like it is inclusive of our brand and our mission in that way as well.
Yeah. Great. And so sort of implied in this is also just being thought partner as we're building our project landing page, right? Like what that is going to look like.
And we have one more member on the team. Her name is Jocelyn. She couldn't join today. Jocelyn Pickford is former elected school board member, former everything. We'll send you a resume.
Is that Jocelyn Graves? No, Jocelyn.
No, Jocelyn Pickford. She ran the Teacher Incentive Fund for the department.
And she's also involved with Learning Heroes, right?
A little bit. I mean, not a whole bunch, but she's done some work with Oak for Learning Heroes because Oak has been studying different learners, and that was an area where she had some expertise, but not a ton, but some, yes. Where she is doing some work right now, which is super interesting, is both for Lizette Reynolds in Tennessee and for Amy Gadara in Georgia, thinking about how, in Virginia, thinking about how you are more strategic about parent communications and school reporting. You know,
Great.
So she's got some cool projects, but she's also, she kind of crosses over into this work that you're doing. And so I would want three, I think Lydia and I will be your primaries, but we would pull Jocelyn in. I think she has a lot to offer this conversation.
That would be great.
She also does a lot of work with, so where you may have seen her recently, she does a lot of work with Ed Reports on HQIM, and she writes an HQIM blog on best practice, and
that makes sense.
She's doing a lot of cool stuff, but when I looked at the deck, I sent it to her and I said, I feel like you would be a huge value add to this. She just couldn't make this time slot today. But you would end up with a team of 3, and we would come alongside as thought partners, and Keisha and Heidi, obviously, like, we're good at talking points and all the stuff, right? We're not scared of deliverables. We're a deliverable intense sort of group. As Lydia knows, she just produced like 14 things for the state of Tennessee in like 15 minutes or something. It's impressive. But so anyway, we have, like, if there's certain deliverables you want in the scope, Helen, like that you just want it to be in writing, that we're on the hook for that, like, of course, we're fine. Like, the paperwork always needs to look exactly right, and I just want it, and we're with, I think Kate and Beth have probably told you too, like, literally we've been working on this gun stuff for a year.
Yeah.
And we haven't made $1. And I think not one. We have never gotten paid for guns inside the PTA. And I'm actually okay with that. It's been a full year.
Consultants always have to put, that's the consultant life, right?
It's consultant life, but really for me, it's like it's just that cool of an opportunity. Like, to put your brand, and you have to choose between the NRA and the PTA for a Republican, is such a magnificent opportunity in life that I was like, I'm in, I don't care. Like, it's the coolest thing I've ever heard. And hopefully Kate and Beth are going to, like, drag that sucker over the finish line.
I hope so.
At some point, there'll be an official thing.
I'm talking to Kate tomorrow also about this project, because in my mind, it's very policy tangential, but I want to get a sense from her if she would like it to feel more central in any way. Mm-hmm. So there's a chance she might also be part of just depending on where her interests and priority lies right now.
Of heroic. Like, she's just stuck in this thing. But my point is, like, we get it needs to look right inside your building. So we will just take your counsel on that.
So it sounds like next steps then, you'll shoot me a few bullets, and then anything else. I think in an ideal world, we would start sooner, so I don't know if that would mean
Could
a
we
certain amount
start?
to HCM for December and then the rest
We-
in
we could do that.
contracts, or-
We could do
But-
that if you need us to.
Okay. So shoot us those few bullets of if you think there'd be any sort of restrictions of from what we've talked about of what you'd be able to do, or like
Yep.
definite, or if this is what I would most prioritize.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at our budget in more detail tomorrow, so I'll also have a firmer number, although I feel pretty confident in the number I've got right now.
Yeah.
And then we'll get things in writing and start chugging along.
Yeah, and so when you say you need it maybe to start in December, we could prorate it and do like a 10 grand or something to HCM for the month of December.
Yeah.
And then have a brand.
Because it would probably be just like, depending how crazy your December is, like onboarding to the project.
I mean, we would do it. I guess my point is we would do it anyway, but it might be best to have that in writing that we're actually officially on board in December. Okay, we can totally do that. And then we'll just move it over.
So awesome.
Okay.
We're very excited.
Thanks for giving us this opportunity. I really, really appreciate it. And Keisha, it'll be fun to get to work with you. And I'm going to go listen to the podcast.
Well, and I've got a great team here, and Keisha and Heidi. Keisha and I have had a few conversations about like what kind of contractor will we actually need that would bring value or not. So I'm glad that we are all feeling really sort of good about moving forward together. So
It's a privilege for us. So we really appreciate it. And I mean, we're all about working with people we love, and we have loved the National PTA. It's been such a blessing.
Awesome.
It's good to see you, Cindy, and good to meet you, Lydia.
Nice meeting you all. I'm really excited about this.
New baby. I smell the new
I know. All right. So in our next call, we're going to have kid pics.
Beautiful.
All,
So
including yours,
beautiful.
Cindy.
Oh, well, you're beautiful, so I can't imagine how much
Thank
beautiful a
you.
new fresh baby is.
Yeah.
I know. All right. Well, we'll then be in touch, and I'm going to just put it out in the universe that hopefully we can get something signed next week. Like, that's my dream desire. Rarely things move fast, but perhaps.
Well, we will get you an email tomorrow.
So maybe not.
Well, but we'll get you an email tomorrow that you can use to sort of move it forward. So
Awesome.
thank
All right,
you.
Thank you, everybody.
Great,
Bye.
thank you.
Thank you.
So nice to see connect with you again. We love you too, and so excited to get to work together again. Lydia, so nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you too.
Excited to work with you.
Bye.
Bye.